Learning English podcast.
So when someone asks you, how was your day? What do you usually say? Like if I had to guess, you probably go to the absolute classics. You just say, fine, or maybe good, busy, not bad.
Right, yeah, the standard script.
Exactly. And then almost immediately you just get that awkward, empty silence because, fine isn't actually a conversation. It's a defense mechanism, really. It is a door that closes before it even opens.
Oh, totally. It's the ultimate social reflex. We just toss out the word fine, not because, nothing happened between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., but because compressing 12 hours of, human experience into a casual response just feels completely impossible.
Yeah, it's too much data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We think unless we fought a bear or, won the lottery, we just don't have a story worth telling.
Right. And we are going to completely dismantle that reflex today. We are taking a deep dive into this incredibly unique set of source materials. Because on the surface, what we are looking at is actually an English language lesson.
Which sounds a bit unusual for us, I know.
Yeah, it is. It's this transcript of two people, Sarah and James, and they're breaking down everyday vocabulary. But when you look at the actual architecture of what they are discussing, it's so much more than a language tutorial.
Oh, absolutely.
It is basically a psychological blueprint of a normal human day.
It really is. And what's so compelling about examining this through the lens of language acquisition is that it strips away all of our complicated professional jargon.
Right.
When you are forced to teach someone how to just describe a normal Tuesday, you start to realize that our days are entirely dictated by cognitive load and energy management and these sort of hidden anxieties.
So our mission for this deep dive is to take your real day, like the messy, exhausting, deeply ordinary reality of it, and figure out the mechanics of communicating it honestly.
Yeah, without needing a PhD in psychology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at the psychology behind why we feel the way we do at 9 a.m. versus, say, 2 p.m. And I promise, by the end of this deep dive, the word fine is going to feel way too small for you to ever use again.
Because the reality of how your day was rarely actually starts with your morning commute. The physiological baseline of your day is it's actually set in the dark the night before.
Oh, wow, yeah.
If you really want to understand your mood at noon, you have to look at midnight.
I want to push on that a bit because the scenario outlined in the materials is just painfully relatable. Like you do everything right. You go to bed at a normal time. You practice decent sleep hygiene. You are lying there trying to be a responsible adult.
Right, doing all the right things.
Yeah, but your brain just completely rejects the premise. Your body is horizontal, but your mind has decided to convene a full executive board meeting to review every minor social interaction you've had since 2018.
Yes, the classic, what the lesson calls tossing and turning. But let's actually look at the mechanics of why that happens. You're physically shifting left side, right side, throwing the blanket off, pulling it back on because of a mismatch between your physical fatigue and your nervous system's arousal state.
Wait, so your body is tired, but your brain is essentially on high alert.
Exactly. Your brain is scanning for threats, which basically manifests as ruminating on problems. And then, of course, you fall into the absolute worst trap. You check the clock.
Oh, checking the time is fatal. It's the worst thing you can do.
It is, because the moment you calculate exactly how few hours you have left before the alarm goes off, your brain registers that as an immediate stressor. So you get this microscopic spike of cortisol.
Which is like the wake-up hormone.
Right, which is the exact chemical opposite of what you need to actually fall asleep.
I love the analogy from the source material here. They say sleep is like a shy cat. The more aggressively you chase it, the faster it runs away.
It's a perfect metaphor.
It really is. It makes total behavioral sense. But eventually, the morning does arrive. And I have to ask, when we wake up feeling awful, is the real problem just sleep deprivation, or is it how we interact with the alarm clock itself?
It's heavily influenced by the latter, actually, specifically through this phenomenon called sleep inertia.
Sleep inertia. Okay.
Yeah. So when your alarm jolts you awake from a deep sleep cycle, your brain just hasn't had the time to properly transition its brainwaves. Sarah and James described this perfectly in the lesson. Your eyes open, your physical body starts the day, but your soul is still hiding under the blanket.
Yes. And that leads straight into the negotiation phase. The just one more minute trap.
Oh, the snooze button.
Yeah. You hit snooze, you close your eyes for what feels like a single second, and you doze off. And mysteriously, that 1 second becomes 20 minutes. Where does the time even go?
Well, it goes into fragmented, non-restorative microsleep. And the cognitive cost of this is just massive.
Really? Just from hitting snooze?
Yeah. When you finally force yourself out of bed after you doze off again, you don't just feel tired. You wake up feeling what the language lesson very accurate terms on edge.
On edge.
You aren't fully awake, but you are tense. Your limbic system is slightly hyperactive.
That perfectly explains the aggressive shirt phenomenon.
The aggressive shirt.
Yeah, they joke in the materials that on mornings like this, the coffee takes too long, the lights are just way too bright, and even your own shirt feels like it has a personal problem with you.
Yes.
Like it's actively trying to annoy you. I always thought that was just me being in a bad mood, but you're saying it's a real physiological state. Our internal baseline is just completely frazzled.
Exactly. Your nervous system is bracing for impact before you even reach the kitchen. You are perceiving totally neutral stimuli like a button on your shirt or, the sound of the refrigerator, hum as minor threats or irritants.
So, okay, we're awake, we're on edge, the shirt is attacking us. How do we actually break the sequence? Because the materials suggest this 10-second morning reset, which, I'll be honest, sounds a little too simple to me. Like, how is 10 seconds going to fix a wrecked nervous system?
Well, it doesn't fix it completely, but it acts as a circuit breaker.
A circuit breaker.
Yeah. When you wake up late and immediately reach for your phone to check emails or the news, you are demanding instant cognitive triage from a brain that is still suffering from that sleep inertia we talked about.
We're just overloading it.
Right. You are flooding your system with external demands.
And so you just zone out into the screen and suddenly you're rushing and late.
Exactly. So the 10-second reset, which is literally just sitting on the edge of the bed and taking a deliberate breath before touching any technology. It's about engaging the parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
It sends this crucial signal to your body that you are safe. It shifts you from feeling on edge to feeling slightly more at ease. It basically creates a buffer between waking up and entering the arena of the day.
Okay, I can see the biological utility of that buffer. So you survive the morning, you secure your coffee, probably coffee number 2, and you get to work. And this brings us to a major linguistic distinction in the materials.
Right, the difference between being busy and being swamped.
Yes. The difference between telling someone you were busy versus telling them you were swamped.
It's a really important distinction. Because busy implies a volume of work that you can actually manage. You are walking quickly, but you are still walking.
You're in control.
Right. But swamped is an entirely different cognitive state. It's when the volume of demands exceeds your processing capacity.
It's the moment the floodgates just open. Messages, meetings, people coming over asking for quick favors. And my absolute favorite observation from Sarah and James is the surprise task.
Oh, the surprise task.
Yeah, you sit down to focus, and out of nowhere, an urgent issue enters the room without knocking.
The uninvited guest of the workday. And this triggers something incredibly destructive in our brains, which is called urgency bias.
Okay, what is urgency bias? Because my instinct, like when I get hit with a surprise task while I'm already swamped, my instinct is to try and clear it immediately.
Of course it is.
I feel like if I just answer everything at once, I can clear the deck and get back to normal. Is that the bias?
That is exactly it. Urgency bias is our psychological tendency to prioritize immediate, smaller tasks over important, long-term tasks simply because they have a shorter window of completion.
So we're just chasing the easy win.
Basically. When we are swamped, we crave these tiny hits of dopamine that come from checking off an email or firing back a quick Slack message.
We feel like we're being so productive, like we're crushing it.
We feel productive, sure, but neurologically, we are incurring a massive switching cost.
A switching cost.
Yeah, every time you shift your attention from a deep work project to a surprise task and then back again, your brain leaves a little residue of attention behind. By trying to do everything at once, you actually finish nothing, and your cognitive fatigue just skyrockets.
So if the instinct to just clear the deck is wrong, what is the right move? The materials introduce this phrase, to knuckle down, but what does knuckling down actually look like mechanically?
Mechanically, knuckling down is an exercise in active sensory and cognitive deprivation.
Wow. Deprivation.
Yeah. It means closing the extra browser tabs. It means turning off your phone notifications. You have to artificially constrain your environment so your brain only has one variable to deal with. You pick the one task that matters, and you completely abandon the rest temporarily.
But let's be realistic here. Knuckling down does not feel good in the moment. It feels incredibly stressful to ignore 5 urgent things just to focus on one.
Oh, it's highly uncomfortable. It doesn't bring peace, it brings direction. You stop spinning in circles and you start moving in a straight line. And the ultimate monument to this state is what Sarah and James call the official symbol of a swamped morning.
Cold coffee.
Yes, cold coffee.
I love this. You finally look up from knuckling down, and your coffee is just freezing cold on the desk. You entirely forgot it even existed. But there's a weird satisfaction to that cold coffee, isn't there?
Absolutely. Because it represents a challenge met. In the moment, being swamped is chaotic and stressful. But retrospectively, having the language to say, I was swamped out of nowhere, but I knuckled down and handled it, well, that frames you as the protagonist of your day, not just a victim of your inbox.
That's such a great reframe. But of course, that hyper-focus, like that pure cognitive fuel you burn to survive the morning, it comes with a hefty biological bill. And usually, the universe collects that bill right around 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
The notorious post-lunch fog.
It is brutal. And I think the materials make a brilliant distinction here. We usually blame a heavy lunch or like our circadian rhythms for feeling like we're going to doze off right at our desks.
Right, the carb crash.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a psychological component too. It's the feeling of being mentally crowded.
That's a great term for it. Let's look at this through the analogy of computer hardware. By 2 p.m., it's not necessarily that your physical battery is at zero. It's that your working memory, your RAM, is completely full.
The RAM is full.
Yeah. Every decision you made in the morning, every task you knuckled down on, is still running like a background application in your brain.
So my brain is essentially thermally throttling. It's literally overheating because I have way too many tabs open mentally.
Precisely. You are mentally crowded. And this is where we usually make a catastrophic error in how we manage our energy. When we feel that fog, we think, oh, I just need a quick break. But what we actually do is pull out our phones and start scrolling.
Oh man, I am so guilty of this. I tell myself, I'm just turning off my brain for 5 minutes. But reading through the materials, I realize scrolling isn't turning off the brain at all.
Not even a little bit.
It's just shoveling more data into an already full RAM.
It is the exact opposite of rest. The source materials use this brilliant phrase, rest is strategy.
Rest is strategy. That belongs on a mug.
Right. To clear that mental crowding, you need what they call a much-needed break. And a strategic much-needed break requires you to activate the brain's default mode network.
Okay, the default mode network. Break that down for me. What is that?
It's the neurological network that activates when you stop focusing on the outside world and just let your mind wander.
Yeah.
It's how the brain consolidates information, solves complex problems in the background, and clears out cognitive fatigue. But, and this is key, it cannot activate if you are feeding it TikTok videos or news headlines.
So a real break has to be completely low input.
Exactly. It's getting up, walking away from the desk, looking out a window, maybe making a cup of tea. It is an intentional period of low sensory input that signals to your nervous system that the immediate crisis of the morning is finally over.
You know, I used to view taking a walk when I had a deadline as like a failure of discipline, like I was being lazy.
A lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, but framing rest as a strategy entirely flips that. If I don't clear the RAM, the rest of my afternoon is going to be slow, error-prone garbage anyway.
And the consequences extend far beyond just the afternoon. If you don't take that much-needed break, you carry that mental crowding straight through to 5 p.m. Which brings us to the most difficult transition of all the evening commute and the attempt to actually switch off.
Because leaving the office physically is easy, but leaving the office mentally is apparently impossible. You know, you're driving home or you're walking to your living room, but you're still drafting emails in your head.
Always.
You're replaying some weird conversation you had at 9 a.m.
Psychologists actually call this the Zeigarnik Effect.
The Zeigarnik Effect.
Yeah. Our brains have this remarkable tendency to remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks much better than completed ones. So if your day was just a series of unresolved fires, your brain refuses to drop them just because the clock says 5:30. You are literally carrying the workday's cognitive load right into your personal space.
And if you don't break that loop, today's stress just becomes tonight's tossing and turning, which then becomes tomorrow's sleep inertia.
Exactly.
It's just a closed loop of misery. So how do we actually break the Zeigarnik effect?
The materials suggest a really powerful concept here, creating a physical reset to trigger a mental reset.
A physical reset?
Right. You cannot simply command your brain to stop thinking about work. It doesn't work. You have to give it physical cues that the environment has changed.
Right. They talk about small rituals, like changing your clothes immediately when you get home, chopping vegetables to make a simple meal, or even just doing some light stretching.
It's all about grounding yourself in the physical present. And they mentioned that the ultimate goal of the evening is to stop fighting the day. I think that is just a profound concept, but to achieve that, They recommend what is really an advanced skill doing absolutely nothing.
I have to admit, when I read that part, I laughed out loud. Doing nothing sounds simple, right? But realistically, when I try to just sit on the couch and do nothing, my anxiety spikes.
Oh, absolutely.
The silence just makes the unread emails louder.
Yeah.
How do we bypass that panic?
Well, the panic happens because you are basically experiencing withdrawal from the constant dopamine and cortisol hits of the workday. Doing nothing isn't about having a completely blank mind. That's impossible. It's about observing your thoughts without acting on them.
That sounds hard.
It takes practice. But eventually, giving yourself permission to just exist allows your nervous system to finally transition to feeling at ease.
Okay, so we've tracked the human machine all the way from the midnight executive meeting, through the sleep inertia, into the swamped urgency bias, through the RAM clearing afternoon break, and finally into the evening reset. We have all this incredibly rich psychological data about what actually happens during a Tuesday.
We do.
But how do we deploy this? When someone finally asks us, "How was your day?" how do we bridge the gap between our internal reality and our external conversation?
This is where Sarah and James transition into some incredibly practical linguistic tools. They outline 5 specific conversational doorways.
I love this concept.
It's great. If you think of your day as this massive, overwhelming room of experiences, you don't need to describe the whole room. You just need to crack open one door and invite the other person to look inside.
Yeah, because it completely bypasses that deer in the headlights feeling. You don't have to invent a profound summary on the spot. You just pick a doorway and step through. Let's walk through these 5 because they fundamentally change how we interact. What is doorway number 1?
The first doorway is just the phrase, to be honest.
To be honest. It sounds so simple, but it carries a lot of weight, doesn't it?
It really does, because it lowers the social defense mechanisms of both people. When you say to be honest, you are explicitly signaling to the listener that you are abandoning the polite script of I'm fine.
Right.
You might say, to be honest, I woke up incredibly on edge today.
Right.
It instantly creates this little pocket of vulnerability.
It gives the other person permission to be real, too. I love that. Okay, what about doorway number 2?
The second is, funnily enough.
Funnily enough, this one feels like it requires a pivot or a twist.
Exactly. It introduces incongruity. Human brains love patterns, but they pay the absolute most attention when a pattern is broken. You use this when your expectations didn't match reality.
Like, funnily enough, I was.
Right, like, funnily enough, I was completely swamped this morning, but I knuckled down and actually felt great by lunch. It shows that your day had an arc. It wasn't just a flat, boring line.
It's a mini narrative. That's great. All right, doorway number 3 is my absolute favorite.
Yes, the phrase out of nowhere.
The drama trigger.
It absolutely triggers the orienting reflex in the listener's brain. When you say out of nowhere, you're promising action. Out of nowhere, my entire afternoon schedule changed.
And the listener has to know what happened next.
Exactly. Their brain leans in because they neurologically need to know how you handled the surprise.
It turns a boring schedule change into an inciting incident in a movie. It's brilliant. All right, doorway number 4 feels a bit more, philosophical.
It is. The phrase is, looking back on it. You use this doorway when the emotional intensity of the day has passed and you've had time to process it.
So you're reflecting.
Right. Looking back on it, taking that much-needed break at 2 p.m. completely saved my mood.
It shows perspective. You aren't just a victim complaining about your day. You are a narrator reflecting on it. And what's the final doorway?
The 5th is, all in all, this is your mechanism for cognitive closure. It's how you wrap up the complexity. All in all, it was a chaotic morning, but I'm finally feeling at ease now.
It provides a satisfying resolution.
Exactly, for both you and the listener.
So the absolute brilliance of this system is that you pair one of those 5 doorways with one of the psychological states we mapped out earlier.
Right, you mix and match.
Yeah, you pair to be honest with tossing and turning, or out of nowhere with swamped. You don't need a massive, sophisticated vocabulary to be interesting. You don't need to understand the mechanics of the default mode network to explain it to someone. You just have to describe the feeling.
Precisely. We often think that to be engaging, we have to be impressive. We have to sound like we're conquering the world every single day. But the shared human struggle of cold coffee and sleep inertia and aggressive alarm clocks, that is actually what builds rapport.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you, the listener, with today. Because as we've seen, your day doesn't need to be extraordinary to be worth sharing. You don't need an epic adventure. You just need one honest detail.
Just one door.
Exactly. But I think there's a deeper reason why we rely so heavily on the word fine. I don't think it's just laziness or a lack of vocabulary. I think we default to fine because we are secretly terrified that our messy, tired, RAM-overloaded days make us a burden to other people.
That's a really powerful point.
We think, my partner is tired, my friends are busy, nobody actually wants to hear about my post-lunch fog or my mundane inbox problems. But the entire premise of the communication breakdown we've explored today argues the exact opposite. Those honest, granular details, the moments of knuckling down, the relief of a real break, they are not burdens. They are the exact materials that make relationships feel alive. They are the proof that we are all navigating the exact same chaotic human hardware.
Beautifully said.
So tomorrow, I want to challenge you. Give the word fine a hard retirement. Just put it away. When someone asks you how your day was, do not give them an awkward silence. Pick one of those doorways. To be honest, funnily enough, out of nowhere, step through it. Share one real piece of your cognitive load and see just how quickly the people around you step through that door to meet you.